Hello everyone. Let us continue with our Java Selenium Module 1. So now we are going to look at Java data types. Before we start with data type, we need to understand what is the most important part of programming. I hope all of you will agree with me that it is data. You name it, whether it is a simple algorithm or it is a complex algorithm, whether it is a social media like Facebook, LinkedIn, or WhatsApp, it is about data. Data is floating or moving from one point to another. Therefore, data type is the most important part of any programming language. If data is so important, let us start with the data type of Java. Now, basically, there are two data types in Java. One is primitive, another is non-primitive, as you can see in the screen in front of you. The focus of this discussion is going to be primitive data type. I'll be covering non-primitive data type in subsequent discussions. Now, first of all, what is the meaning of primitive? Primitive means the most basic form. So for example, when you're learning a language like English, for example, we start with learning alphabets, then we learn words, and then eventually sentences, right? Similarly, in order to start learning with Java programming, we'll start with primitive data type and eventually build bigger programs on top of that. So what are the different primitive data types in Java? As you can see here in the screen, we have integer, we have float, we have character, and we have Boolean. These are the different primitive data types that are available in Java. Now under integer, we have other types as well: byte, short, int, long. Under float, we have types like float and double. Then we have character and we have Boolean. Now what is an integer? Integer is any integer like 10, 20, that is positive integer. You can have negative integer as -50, -100, or 0 is also an integer. Then you have floating point or float, which is 10.5 or 11.1, the ones with the decimal. Character is basically any character that you see maybe on your keyboard, or alphabets in different languages like English, French, German. Then we have Boolean, which is either true or false. Now, as you can also see that under integer, we have byte, short, int, long. I'll talk about this in more details in next slide. So if you will see here, integer, there are four types. We have byte, we have short, we have int, and we have long. Now, each of them have a size. 1 byte equals to 8 bits, and byte data type is actually 1 byte. Similarly, we have short as 2 byte, int as 4 byte, and long as 8 byte. Similarly, in the case of floating point, you have float 4 byte and double as 8 byte. Boolean is 1 bit, which is true or false, and character is 2 byte. Now, there is a concept of range. I will explain this with an example, but for the time being, please understand that if it's 1 byte, it can hold a value in the range of -128 to +127. Similarly, if it is short, it can hold the value in the range as it is shown here in front of you. I will explain this concept with an example, but before that, let's go to our next slide. So if you will see, to understand the concept of range, let us look at this diagram. And I will go to my drawing board to explain this in a better way. Okay, so coming to my drawing board, if you will see, as I just mentioned, that the different data types have ranges. Now, under int, you have 4 types. We have byte, short, int, long. These are all integers. Now, a very obvious question is that why do we have 4 integer data type? So in order to answer this question, let me go to this particular diagram here. If you will see, I have different sizes of cups here. Maybe I'll call it as 250 ml, 250 ml. This is maybe 500, and maybe this is 1000 ml. Now, for example, if you want to have coffee, you might choose either this mug or you might as well choose this mug. Now, if you want to have coffee and the quantity is 250 ml, you have an option to choose this or this or this. I mean, it is your choice, perfectly fine. But if you, let's say, use the size 500 or size 1000 for 250 ml, what is exactly happening is that you are wasting the capacity of the mug, meaning that this will only use half of the capacity and this will use 1/4 of the capacity if you are drinking 250 ml of coffee. Same is the concept applicable in Java, meaning that if you have an integer and if the range or the value which you are trying to use is small, then it is a good idea to use an integer type which is smaller in size so that you can save the memory, because we all know that there is only limited amount of memory available in our desktop and laptops. So it is always a good idea to choose an appropriate size of integer so that you can save, or maybe you can effectively utilize the limited memory that you have. Now let me try to explain this concept with some basic programming. So I will go to Eclipse and here I will create a class. Now I have created a package here. I'm going to talk about packages in my future discussion, but the purpose of creating packages is that I am trying to logically organize my programs. So what I'm going to do is I will write a small program and explain the concept of range. So let me go to new. I'll create a class and I'll call it as primitive data types. You can give any name of your choice. And I also need a main method. Main is the starting point of execution in your program. So check this box here and I'll say finish. Now, this has a lot of code with respect to what is public, what is class, what is main method. I'll cover all of this, but for now, our focus is only going to be what is primitive data type. So coming back to the slide which I was sharing with you, keeping in mind that we have integer with byte in the range of -128 to 127, it means that if I define a byte data type, it can only be in this range. So let's do that. So first of all, byte, which is in the range of -128 to 127, right? So I'll define a byte data type, byte B1 equal to 10. Now 10 falls within the range of -128 to plus of 127. This is plus 127. Similarly, I can also give it as a negative number, which is byte B2 equal to, let's say, -100. Now 100 also falls in this range, so there is no problem so far. Now let's say I give it a number which is outside of this range. So if I give byte B3 equal to 200, now this 200 does not fall in this range. Therefore, it will give an error. If you hover your mouse here, it will say cannot convert from int to byte. What is conversion and what is type conversion? I will discuss that separately, but for now it will give an error because this number 200 does not fall in this range. So I will have to comment it. 2 slashes, forward slashes here means it's a comment, a single line comment in Java. Now, similarly, if I give it as a negative number which falls outside of this range, again, it will be an error. So that is regarding byte. Now, let's look at maybe Same thing holds for short. You cannot have a value outside of this range for int also and for long as well. Now let us take an example of float. So in case of float, first of all, I'll take double here, which is of 8 byte. So let me define to you double d1 equal to 10.5. So if you will see, I'm using a decimal number and therefore I have defined a data type as double. Now, if I have to use float, float f1 equal to 100.2, now you will see that it gives a compile time error because by default, whenever you define a decimal data type in Java, it is double in nature. So if you want to define a float data type, you have to suffix it with F here, stating that it is a float data type. Similarly, if you want to use Boolean, you define it like this: Boolean, bool equal to true. You can define it as either true or you can define it as false. It is your choice, but for now I'm keeping it as true. Again, if it is a character data type, I'll say char c1 equal to, in single quotes, a. I'll say capital A. So these are different data types. I'm not going to cover each type under integer. I just took only one. You can try out the others. Similarly, floating I have covered, Boolean I have covered, and character also I have covered. I have talked about range. I have talked about the size, that is the bytes. Default value I'll cover in a separate discussion. So for now, these are the various primitive data types that are available in Java. I hope the concept of Java data types is clear to you all. Thank you so much.